Hello and welcome to Tableau Training for Beginners. My name is Michelle Covine and I'm with the Simplilearn team. Today we'll be talking about all the things you need to know to get started with Tableau. So here's our agenda. We'll be talking about business intelligence and why it's important and some BI tools. Then we'll talk about Tableau and why we use Tableau for business intelligence and do a quick overview of Tableau installation. Then we'll show you how you can get started by connecting to data, and we'll do an overview of the Tableau workspace. We'll go a little bit deeper into the Tableau workspace as we look at worksheets and dashboards, and we show you how you can ask questions using visualizations. We'll look at hierarchy and drill down, calculated fields. We'll look at parameters and sets, and finally we'll show you how to build a donut chart and a 2D pie chart. So what is business intelligence? Companies use business intelligence technologies to collect, analyze, and present data in order to create actionable information. Today's businesses are always seeking insights about their customers, products, and services. So businesses are faced with many questions, such as how do I know my customers are happy? What would make my customers stay? And how can I increase awareness of my products and services? Business intelligence can help you answer those questions. When you have a question about what your customers are feeling, what your customers are doing, who the customers are, and what's the best channel to target them, business intelligence is a method of transforming your data into these insights and measurable metrics. Business intelligence tools are designed to make the data flow manageable. In the age of information, Tableau is one of many tools to help manage the data flow and turn data into actionable information. We also have Qlik and SAP and Oracle. You may have heard of some of these. Let's take a look at some of the benefits of Tableau as your business intelligence tool. So why would we use Tableau? It can be connected to 40 different data sources. The more data sources it can connect to, it means that you are more likely to get direct access to your data. It can build interactive dashboards with just a few clicks, which can help you quickly understand your data, and it lets you see your outliers. There's also simple analytics built right into Tableau, such as trends and forecasting, that can help you understand your data on a deeper level. Tableau has been a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for the last 6 years, and that includes 2018. Here we will take a look at an overview of the products offered by Tableau. So we have Tableau Desktop, which is where you do all of your development. This is where you connect to and build visualizations and dashboards. Today we'll be using Tableau Public, which is a free version of Tableau Desktop, but with some limitations, such as having no R integration, and it can only support up to 1 million rows of data. Also, any data published here is made public, so you can't use this for private company information. Then there's a new tool called Tableau Prep, where you can prepare your data by seeing it visually before you connect and build reports. There's also Tableau Online, which is a cloud-hosted version of Tableau Server, a place where you can publish your dashboards, and it enables you to share your dashboards in a secure way. Tableau Server has an option to be on-premises. So let's just do a quick comparison between building a visualization in Excel and building one in Tableau. Okay, so here we have an Excel file full of data that we will soon connect to and use for some of our demonstration purposes. And you can see that we have information about orders. If we wanted to find out the quantity sold and the sum of sales for each region, we could do that by creating a pivot table. So we'll make it, I selected my cells, we'll make it in a new worksheet. And here we have the beginnings of a pivot chart. And we can grab region and pull it into our columns. And then we'll grab sales and put it into values. And then we also want to look at quantity and put that into values. And it's automatically summing up sales and quantity, but you can choose if you want it to be sum or not. And then we'll take our values and put it on rows so that we can see sales and quantity one on top of the other. And that's the basics of a pivot chart. Now let's do a similar thing in Tableau. Okay, so we have our connection to the data, and Tableau automatically splits out the dimensions from the measures. We'll go into more depth on that later. But we can come and grab region and put it onto columns, and we get a similar thing, maybe a little nicer formatted. And then we can come and put quantity there. And if we want to add sales to it, we can double click on sales, and we'll have quantity and sales one on top of the other. we can put sales on top by dragging quantity down in that box. We also have this Show Me dialog box, which allows you to see what visualizations you could build using what's already on the screen or the things that you have selected. So right now, we could quickly switch it to bar charts, and now we can see quantity and sales across our region with bar charts. Or we could switch it to stacked bars, and we can see our quantity across the regions. If you close that, we can see our legend over here, and then our sales across the region. So in Tableau, we have a lot of really quick flexibility to turn just text into a visualization. So in summary, we can see a side-by-side of what we made using pivot tables in Excel and what we made in a similar amount of time in Tableau. Let's get started with the Tableau installation. As for requirements, you need Windows 7 or later, or you need your Mac operating system to be 10.11 or later. Here are some of the browsers you can use to install Tableau. We will be installing Tableau Public today, and to do that, you just Google Tableau Public Download and click on that first link, and then you put in your email address and click Download the app. So let's just look up Tableau Public Download, and it's this first one. You can click Download Now, and it takes you to the Tableau Public page where you can click Sign In and create an account free. This gives you a place to save the visualizations you make, but keep in mind anything you save on Tableau Public is public. And then you come here and you enter your email address and click Download the app, and it should give you an executable file that you will download. And once it's downloaded, you should be able to open Tableau Public. So let's go take a look at the Tableau Public opening page. So this is what Tableau Public looks like when you first open it. On your left, you have the different things you can connect to. This is more limited in Tableau Public than it is in Tableau Desktop. So if you invest in Tableau Desktop, you have many things you can connect to. You can also connect to data by clicking this drop-down Connect Data piece. That's especially useful when you've already started your visualization. Then we have this central portion called Open. This is where anything that you have opened up previously will show up. You can also click Open from Tableau Public, and when you have, my connection's timed out so I need to log in, but when you log in, it says no workbook found, try publishing first. This is where you'll see all of your published Tableau Public dashboards. Over here we have Discover, and it has some how-to videos, visualization of the day, which is where people who have made Tableau Public visualizations get recognized for their skill, and you get some pretty cool ideas when you look there. So let's get started by connecting to a data source. We'll click Microsoft Excel, and we'll choose our Excel file and open it up. And this is our data source page. This shows you the sheets on the Excel file and allows you to drag them in so that you can see the data show up. This gives you a preview of what your data will look like. You can see that Tableau is starting to classify our fields. So anything that has ABC on it shows that that's a column that has strings in it. We also have a globe, which was where Tableau has recognized these values to be geographical. So we have state, and it's recognized that it contains states. It bases it on the keywords that it stores to identify if it's geographical. And so it takes a look, and you've named it city, and it knows that city is geographical. We also have the calendar symbol, where it's recognized that it's a date field. And we also have row ID that shows up with the hashtag, and it recognizes it's a number. So now that we have our data source pulled in, we can come here and hit Sheet, which is where you start to build your visualization. Let's take a look at all the different pieces of this before we go any further. We have the data that we're connected to up here. It's our orders sheet from the Sample Superstore Excel sheet. We have dimensions on top and measures on bottom. These are where we're going to get the fields to drag and drop. Here we have our cards. We'll look more in depth at our cards in a moment. And these are our shelves, the column shelf and the row shelf, where you can drag things in to make changes happen in the visualization center. We have our Show Me tabs, where you can see, we took a brief look at this earlier, but you can see all of the different visualizations you can build here. A neat thing about Show Me is that when you hover, it'll tell you what types of fields you need to build it. So for a symbol map, try 1 geographical field, 0 or more dimensions, or 0 to 2 measures. And that's how you can build a geographical symbol map. And when you're done with Show Me, you just close it. Let's take a look here at our sheets. So we have sheet 1 and sheet 2. A sheet is basically just one visualization at a time. Let's get rid of the extra sheet. We have a dashboard, which is where you can pull multiple sheets on to show multiple visualizations at one time. And then we have what's called a story, which allows you to show a sequence of visualizations so that you can tell a story. Perfect. Okay, so we saw that Tableau is categorizing our different fields, and it is also giving it a role. So we have dimensions on top and measures on bottom. Dimensions contain descriptive values, such as names, dates, and geographical data. You can use dimensions to reveal details in your data, that is, qualitative details. We also have measures, which contain numeric, quantitative values that you can measure. Measures can be aggregated, and when you drag a measure onto the view, Tableau will apply an aggregation to that measure. It's sum by default. So let's show this by building what we built before. We'll grab region, and we'll see its 4 distinct values as a dimension. And then we'll double click on quantity, and we can see the numbers here, the measures, and you can see here that it is the sum of quantity. And now we can also double click on sales, and we can see quantity and sales. To discuss a little bit more about dimensions and measures, you can see that in general measures are numbers and dimensions are not. But sometimes, like row ID, it is a number. Now, why would we have a number up here instead of in the measures? So you can tell the difference between a number, whether it should be in measures or it should be in dimensions, based on whether you'll need to do any calculations on it, or if you would want to be able to aggregate it at some time. So for sales, if you have several orders in a day, you might want to know what the sum of those sales are. But if you have several orders in the day, and they're on rows 2, 3, 4, and 5, you might not want to know the sum of the rows. So Tableau is smart enough that when it sees ID, it knows that it belongs up in the dimensions. Now you can switch. So if row ID was actually something you would want to aggregate for some reason, you can drag it down to the measures and add it down there. But in our case, row ID isn't something that you want to sum or average. Can you think of any other numbers that might not show up as a measure that should be a dimension? Comment below with your answers. As we discussed before, dimensions are on top, measures are on bottom, and you can see that blue is associated with dimensions and green is associated with measures. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. So dimensions are qualitative and measures are quantitative, but blue means we want our label to be discrete and green means we want our label to be continuous. Let's make a new sheet and make a visualization to kind of show this. So we can bring on quantity, and we're going to use it as a dimension, but you can see even when it's a dimension you can choose continuous or discrete. So right now it's a dimension but it's green. It's a little bit different than what you might expect. And then we'll do sales. So now we can see over the different quantities what our sales was. It has been for this period of time that we're looking at. I believe it's 4 years. So for when people bought 3 items, the total sales was that number. And you can see that this is an axis. So it's from 1 to 15. Now, if we change it from continuous to discrete, you can see that 1 is a label, 2 is a label, and it's not an axis ranging from 1 to, it doesn't even have 15 because there are no values under 15. These are just individual labels. So we go back, it's green again, and you can see that it's an axis. So we have 2 greens on here, so we have 2 axes. And change it back to discrete, and now we have 1 axis and 1 set of individual labels. So let's go back to our sheet 3. We have all of these different sales by the different quantity numbers, and up here we have our sorting. When you hover, it tells you what kind of sorting is going to happen. So we could sort quantity descending by sales. So we can see that when they buy 3 things, we have the highest sales. You can do the opposite. where it's the lowest to the highest number of sales. You can also do sorting more in depth by clicking on the quantity and right-clicking sort. So we could just sort by descending or ascending or by sales or alphabetic, which is not what we want. You can choose the field or you can manually change your sorting here. And now we're back to what we had at the beginning. Now that we've had an overview of how Tableau works, let's go into a little more detail. Tableau is very much built on the premise of drag and drop. So let's build a simple visualization and talk about what each of these shelves and marks cards specifically do. So we're going to make a simple chart which is average sales by region. So we know we want sales on, let's do sales on rows. Now for rows and for metrics, since this is continuous like we talked about before, it's making an axis for our sales. We also can drag region onto columns, and it makes one column per region. So that's how it works with dimensions. If you pull a dimension onto columns, you're saying I want one blank per column. I want one region per column. So if you wanted to do it by instead of region, if you want to remove something from a visualization, you just pull it back off. Or you can hit undo or Control Z. Tableau has the benefit of having unlimited undos. So let's say we wanted to bring on city. Let's say we want one column per city, and that's what you get. And there's a lot of cities. So that's what it looks like. Let's take city back off. I want one column per region. And for sales, I want my rows axes to show me where sales are. Great. Now let's say we want to adjust the color of these bars. You can click on color and you can select any of them. So let's pick this nice blue, or we can pick an orange, and that's how you can determine the color. But if you want something else to determine the color, you can take region and drag it onto color, and now we have one color per region. Now with measures, again, since they're continuous, it's going to be more like a scale. So if I want them to be a different color based on sales, and I pull sales onto color, it's going to be darker where there's higher sales and lighter where there's lower sales. So it's continuous from light to dark. But for region, it is one color per region. So they're distinct colors. It's not continuous. Great. Let's say we want to sort this biggest to smallest, and we can look at size here. So if we want to adjust the size manually, we can click on it and drag it. But if we want the size to be based on something else, you choose a measure for the size. So if we want it to be wider based on sales, we will drag sales onto size, and we can see that it gets bigger with bigger sales. We can do the same thing and replace the sales with profit, and now it's bigger if there is bigger profit. And drag that back off. So you can determine manually, or you can do it with your measures. For label, let's say we want the sales onto label. Now we can see the exact sales number for each region. What if we wanted the name of the region there as well? We can drag region onto labels, and we can see sales for the West region. You can adjust which one goes on top. See how we have two T's here? Those are both labels. Great. Tooltip. When we click on Tooltip, it'll show us what's going to happen when we hover. So as I hover here on East, it says Region East Sales, and then it shows the sales amount. Now we talked about, I'll take my labels back off, wanting to make this visualization not for the sum of sales, but for the average of sales. So we will right click on our sum of sales here in the rows, hover over measure, which right now is sum, and change it to average. And we have a different result here. So let's sort again, and we can see that the South region actually has the highest average of sales, which was not the case for the sum. Now let's say we want our our sales to be on the label, but look, it's giving us the sum of sales label. So we just do the same thing and change it to average. Now we can see our average on the label. The label has some interesting options, like you can format this, and we could say maybe we want it to be all of them to be blue, and that happens right there. You can also choose to only show the minimum and the maximum. This becomes handy on a line chart where you don't want all marks labeled because it gets very messy, but you want the tallest and the shortest part to be labeled. And maybe you just want the tallest, so we'll click label minimum value and remove that checkbox, and now we just have the tallest value there. And one card that we haven't used yet is the filters card. So we could allow people to look at this, but only certain regions. So what we can do is we can come over to region and right click on it and click show filter, and it will add it to that filters card. And now we can remove central from the mix and just look at those ones. You see, if we remove south, the new highest, east, now has the label, but if we put it back in, south will have the label again. If we don't want to have these filters, we can pull it off there. Or if we wanted to filter out by country, we just have United States, so let's not filter by country. But we could pull in category, and we have these filters by category. If we select them all, they'll all be there. And we click show filter and it will bring it over here. And we can remove out technology, and the South still has the highest for the other two. But if we only include technology, you can see the difference there. So that's the basics of filters. Another thing that I can mention here is that you can change the type of mark manually. So you saw when we pulled on region and we pulled on sales, it automatically made us a bar chart. But we could change this to be a line chart, and you can see that the color changes because we told it to based on region. If we pull that off, then it would be a line chart there. You can change it to be a lot of different type of visualizations here. So when you're not using show me to help determine your graphs, you can choose it manually right here. Okay, now let's look at building a scatter plot. So a scatter plot is when you have a bunch of shapes and points on a visualization with two axes that are both measures. So if we take sales and put it on the y-axis, and we take discount and put it on the x-axis, we can see our point that represents all of our data with the sum of sales and the sum of discount. And if we wanted to see this per order, we'll take order ID and put it onto detail. Now what detail does is it determines the level that we are building our visualization at. So grabbing order ID and putting onto detail gives us all of these little points. So for each order, what was our sales and what was our discount. So we have out here some outliers that you can find very quickly. Let's actually do product ID instead. So I'll put it right over top of order ID and it will replace it. Now we see all of our products. Anything that has high sales is up here, anything that has high discount is over here. You can see that it sort of has a trend where things with high sales do not have high discounts, which makes sense. If we wanted to know what category these products all show up in, we could take category and put it onto shape. And now we have 3 different shapes that tell us the categories. Tableau has a cool new highlight feature which allows you to show just the dimension that you want to see, but it leaves the other ones in place. So for example, if we click on furniture, first we have to turn on the highlight feature and then click on furniture. And now you can see all of the furniture items popping up in our visualization and how they're kind of clustered in this area and the pattern for them. When we click on technology, we can see their pattern, which is a little bit different. So we have them by shape with category. Let's drag category onto color as well. If you remember, category will determine the color and the shape at this point. And so we can kind of see the patterns happening there. So if we want to see our high discounted items, they're all over here. And most of the things that are getting high discounts are office supplies, which is interesting. And then our highest sales product up here, now we could take that product ID and find out what that product actually is out of our, oh, look, we have product name. Let's replace product ID with product name. And we see that that is a Canon Image Class Advanced Copier. So this copier is our big salesperson. And office supplies binders do not give us very many sales, and we're highly discounting them. So now you know a little bit more about the details card and the shapes card, and about using highlighting in Tableau. So let's say we wanted to know by subcategory what our profit is like. We could grab subcategory and pull it onto columns, and we would say we want one column per subcategory. And then let's grab profit and pull it onto rows, and you can quickly see which categories are profitable and which ones are not. So we can also take profit and put it onto color so that you can see that even more clearly. Right now it is going from orange to blue, which is Tableau's default. If we wanted to change from what color to what color it was going, we have a lot of options in here when you go to edit colors. So maybe you wanted to go from red to blue, just to emphasize that the profit that's negative is bad. So we can hit apply, and now we can see red to blue. We have our categories here, our subcategories here, but let's separate it out by category. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take subcategory off. I'm going to put on category, and now it's by category, and then I'm going to put subcategory on after it. So when we put it in order like this, the order matters in Tableau. So first it breaks it up by category, and then inside of that it breaks it up by subcategory. So furniture's all here, and then there's our subcategories under furniture. If we were to move subcategory to the front, it really doesn't group it appropriately, because first it's breaking it up by subcategory and then by category, and that's not effective. We end up with furniture, 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 furniture spread out across our visualization. So again, let's put category to the front, and now we have our profit by category by subcategory, and we can click sort subcategory descending by profit. And now what it does is within the highest group, within each group, it then sorts it by profit. So you can tell it's not going to break this group apart to move tables to the very end. It's going to keep tables inside of furniture. And then it doesn't move furniture to the very end either. So what we have here is a quick view by category by subcategory how we're doing on profit. We can see that tables is our biggest drain on profit, and so if we wanted to improve the profitability of furniture, maybe we would not sell tables anymore. It's just not working out for us. Another thing about this visualization that we could do to improve it is you can see that there's some of these words are getting cut off, so we could right click on this axis and click rotate label, and now you can read the whole word, and so that's helpful. Also up here we have our title, which right now is the same name as our sheet. So if we rename the sheet to profit by subcategory, then it names the title up here. So this is making it look a little bit better. And then here we have profit, and it shows it but without any like dollar signs. So let's come up here to profit and click format and you can see that we can format the sum of profit to be currency. And we can do it currency by the thousands, and we can get rid of these decimal places. And now you can see it's just a little bit nicer, a little bit more clear. Maybe we don't have to have the label here that says category / subcategory. So we can hide field labels for columns, because it's pretty clear that these are categories and these are subcategories. So those are some formatting tips for you. Formatting in Tableau is one of those things where there are just a lot of different ways you could change things. So in more in-depth videos, especially from Simplilearn, you'll learn more and more about this. Also, as we are building these visualizations, if you want to have access to this data set so that you can build along with me, just make a comment in the comments below and the Simplilearn team will send you this data set. Now we're going to take a look at creating a hierarchy in Tableau. So we'll make a new tab, and we're going to make a sheet called Sales by Product. And so we will be looking at sales as a number. And let's bring on product name. Now there are a lot of products names, so it's going to make sure that you really want to do this. I'm going to click Add All Members, and now we can see all of our products and their sales over all time. So if we sort this, we can see our highest selling item, which we discovered earlier as the advanced copier. And we scroll down to the bottom, our lowest selling items. So we have our products, and we can group that by subcategory. And you can see I need to put it in the front again. And by category. Alright, I'm going to take product name back off, and we're going to talk about hierarchies. So, a product rolls up into a subcategory, which rolls up into a category. You can create a hierarchy by, let's start with subcategory and dragging it onto category. And it's going to create a hierarchy. We'll call it our product hierarchy. And now it knows that category is the parent to subcategory. Let's do the same thing by grabbing the product name and putting it underneath subcategory. So now it knows category is the parent, then there's subcategory, and then there's product name. This allows you to, instead of pulling this off or putting it back on, you can bring category on, and then you can expand it by pressing this plus button. And now we see, but here's our sales by category, by subcategory. And then here's our sales by category, by subcategory, by product name. This is really useful when you're creating a details section for your users. And so when somebody wants to know, let's say you have show filter for category and a filter for subcategory, show filter for subcategory, and they're looking at category here and they're just like, I see technology has the highest sales and I just want to see technology. So I'm going to unclick furniture and office supplies. Let's put category on top. And then, so I just have technology. Well, I want to see what has the highest sales inside of technology. And let's sort it. Oh, phones. Phones does. So I just actually want to look at phones. So I'm going to remove accessories, copiers, and machines. And what has the highest sales inside of phones? And sort it. And now I can see quickly the detailed information without having to change my visualization. Let's give this visualization a little more depth. First, I'll add back in all of our categories and subcategories by showing across region. So we know technology had the highest, but how does it look across region? Now, part of the point of Tableau is to allow the users to read the visualizations very quickly. And when you have big blocks of text like this, it's kind of hard to see which one has the highest because it doesn't quite stand out very quickly. So what we can do is take sales and drag it onto color. Let's change our marks to a square, and now it's going to color each of these. It colors every one of these cells based on its darkness for sales. This is a little bit heavy of a color. You can click color here and change the opacity to give it a little bit of a lighter look. Just makes it a little bit see-through. Great, so now it's a lot easier to see that the West seems to have the highest sales and that technology in the East is the very highest. So now when we drill into subcategory, it keeps that coloring and we can see more in depth and quicker that phones has the highest across most of them. It's not quite the highest in the West because chairs is the highest in the West. There's one place in Tableau where hierarchies are built in, and that's in dates. So dates in Tableau can be very complex because they allow very complex visualizations. So we will not go into depth about dates at this time, but let's take a look at how they work for hierarchies. So we have order date that we can pull onto columns here, and you can see that it's blue, meaning that it's discrete. So each one of these is a header instead of it being an axis across the top. Now let's drag profit onto rows. So now we can see our profit over time for each of these years. And Tableau has some hierarchies built into dates already. So when I click this plus on columns, it'll split it out into quarters. So this is a header, and these are all subheaders underneath that header because it is distinct and discrete right now instead of continuous. So it's split out year, 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 and quarters, 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 quarters. This allows you to quickly compare quarter 1 across all of the years, and quarter 2 across all of the years, and quarter 4 across all of the years. Another way you could add some more detail to this is by taking maybe category and pulling it onto color. And now we have one line for each category, and we can see that drop in technology is a big part of the responsibility for that drop we were seeing in quarter 2 of 2016. So let's take that back off, and let's take quarter back off, and let's explore continuous dates. So here in dates, we have our top section of dates, and then you see it repeats, and we have the bottom section of dates. So we've got year, but we also have year here, quarter, and quarter. Now the top ones are all discrete, and when I change it to a bottom one, year, same thing, same year, it changes it to be green, and now it's continuous. So now instead of this being a header for 2013 and a header for 2014, it's an axis. So the difference here is when I press the plus and it changes it to quarter, instead of adding quarter to year, now it's doing quarter for each year and making one continuous line. And we can keep going and drill down to month. You can go pretty far. Now when we add category as color, we get our 3 lines for the 3 categories. And we also have highlighting turned on here still, so when we click on technology, we can highlight technology with the others in the background, so we don't lose the context of the other categories. Let's take that back off. Next, let us talk about calculated fields. So we'll make a new sheet, and we're going to create our first calculated field. We can create a calculated field by clicking this arrow, which gives us some options, and clicking Create Calculated Field, or we can come and click in the white space below dimensions or below measures, and we right click and click Create Calculated Field. Let's name it Profit Ratio. So this is for if we wanted to create a visualization that showed the profit ratio, but we don't have that measure readily available to us. To bring in fields for our calculation, you can do it in one of 2 ways. One is to start typing it, and it will start auto-prompting you for the different measures or for different calculations or values you can use, or you can come and drag it in. So if we want profit and we want sales, if we do profit divided by sales, that is a profit ratio unaggregated. Okay, and let's make a second calculated field. We could come here and click duplicate, and that will duplicate our field, but I just want to start over again, so I'll click Create Calculated Field, and I will call it Profit Ratio Aggregated. And in this one, we're going to do sum, click, of profit, click, divided by sum of sales. Okay, so now, what's the difference between profit ratio aggregated and profit ratio unaggregated? How will those behave differently in Tableau? Let's look at this by looking at a single order. So first, let's bring on all the orders and all the products under that order. And let's look at this order. So I want to filter this whole dashboard to only this order. So I can right click on it and click keep only. That creates a filter up here that only has that box checked. And if I want to get rid of this later, I can just pull it right off of filters and everything will come back. But I want to, so keep only. And now let's take a look at profit ratio aggregated. I double clicked on it and I added it here, and profit ratio unaggregated. Again, double clicking, and now they're side by side. Let's give us a little bit of more room. So when I dragged that out, it gave us more room so we could see them side by side in the entire titles. Okay, so I chose to look at one order and these product names because the combination of order and product name is unique, one per row. We know that Tableau will aggregate the data up to the lowest level in the visualization, and I brought it all the way down to the lowest level of the data source, so we have no aggregation right now. So when we're looking at it without any aggregation, these two calculations are the same. Profit ratio aggregated, let's look at that again. We'll click edit, and that's the one where we sum profit and sum sales before we divide. And then we've got profit ratio unaggregated. So let's also look at profit and look at sales. This is a technique that I use when I'm trying to understand how my calculated fields are working. Try to break it down to the lowest level possible and see if it's doing what I expect. So we've got profit and we've got sales. Now, both of them are at 0.5 or 50%, and that's because profit is 8 and sales is 16 for Adam's telephone messaging. Now, let's take off product name. When we take off product name, we can see that they start to vary. We've got profit ratio aggregated and profit ratio unaggregated. So here we have profit and sales. The profit ratio should be profit divided by sales. So let's open up a calculator and make it a little smaller. So if we take profit at 219.1 and divide it by sales at 508.6, we get 0.4, not 1.8. So where does this 1.8 come from? Well, let's put product name back on here. What happens is, with profit ratio aggregated, it sums up the profit and then divides it by the sum of sales. So that's what we did. When we took off profit ratio unaggregated, we had the sum of profit and divided it by the sum of sales, which is what we want. Profit ratio unaggregated, however, does the calculation, profit divided by sales, and then sums it afterwards. You can see it right here. It's the sum of profit ratio unaggregated. So it makes this calculation, and then it adds up 0.5 plus 0.5 plus 0.3 plus 0.5. And that's where we get our 1.8, which is what we see when we pull off product name, 1.8. So for most calculations, you want to do profit ratio aggregated, where you determine how it's aggregated before you do the calculation. So let's remove profit ratio unaggregated and delete it. Let's go to profit ratio aggregated and just call it profit ratio. Perfect. Now we no longer need anything that we have on our visualization right now, so let me show you a quick trick to clear the board. Tableau has this button up here, which is called Clear Sheet. You can also do on Windows Alt-Shift Backspace, and you just click Clear Sheet and it will start you over with that sheet. And that really helps when you've dragged a bunch of things on and really made a mess when you're trying things out. Okay, so we're going to build a visualization, and we're going to look at region, and we're going to look at it by profit ratio. And so now we have this bar chart by profit ratio. Let's color this by region. We can also pull on profit and sales, and we can see all three of them side by side, split out by region. Now let's say we also wanted to see each region by sales per customer. So let's create some calculated fields that will help us do that. Let's create our first calculated field that's going to get us a count of customers. Let's call it total number of customers. And so we have customer name and customer ID. Let's do count distinct of customer ID. And that gives us the total number of customers. Apply. So right now, we could take total number of customers and see which categories have the highest number of customers. Perfect, but that's just one part of our calculation. We want to see total sales divided by total number of customers. So let's make our second calculated field, and we're going to call it sales per customer. We're going to do our sum of sales, which we can drag in, and divide that by total number of customers. Now you see that calculated field we just made pops up inside of our calculation dialog box. And we hit apply, and it shows up, so we hit OK. And let's replace total number of customers with sales per customer. And now we can see our sales per customer ratio and which ones have the highest. For this next part, I'm going to make a couple of visualizations in a row that all apply to the same information using a couple of different tactics. So first, let's use show me. So I want to look at region and sales for this visualization. So I'm going to control click region after I clicked sales. So one more time, I'm going to click on sales and I'm going to control click region. And I'm going to click show me. And it's going to give me all of the different visualizations I could make with region and sales. Let's pick tree map. Great, so now we have a tree map that shows us our sales by region. And we have the size and the color of the box is both sales. So let's say we wanted the size to be sales, but the color to be profit. So let's grab profit and drag that onto sales. So now we can see our most profitable to our least profitable. Let's edit our colors, and we're going to change it from red to blue diverging, red to blue. But let's go to advanced and make the center number 0. This means that it will never be red unless it's less than 0. So let's hit apply. So it's all blue, and if anything ever goes negative, then it will be red. Okay. Let's call this sheet sales profit by region. Perfect. Now we're going to start using our geographical fields. So we have state, city, country, and postal code. Let's double click on state and see what happens. Awesome. So it is generated these two fields. Tableau has generated longitude and latitude for us. And it's been able to recognize the states in the United States and where they're located and given it a longitude and latitude. So next we will look at sales by state by double-clicking on sales. And what it's done was change the size of the dot based on sales. Now I think I'm going to move sales from size to color, and it has automatically changed it to a filled map instead of dots on a map. Perfect. So now we can see the states with the biggest amount of sales. Let's put it back onto size, and we have our circles again. Let's put sales onto size, not state onto size, and we have our circles again. But let's make them a little bit bigger. These two marks on the Tableau size line are to give you an idea of how big and how small you should go before it gets too difficult to see. So when we go bigger than the bigger line, it detects that you're getting close to having overlap. But it's up to you as the builder. Okay, so we have size for sales again, and for profit onto color again. So you can see anything that is more profitable is darker, and anything that is less profitable, or less than 0 in this case, is orange. Let's do what we did with color before. Change it to red, blue diverging, and set our center point to 0. Okay, so now we know that if anything is red, it was negative in profit. Perfect. Let's name this sheet Sales Profit by State. Great. Now let's look at sales and profit by category. So we have category and we've made columns. So this is when we drag something to the columns shelf, just remember we want one column per category. And let's double click on sales and it's going to put it into text. And that's not what I want. So let's take sales and drag it onto rows and it automatically makes a bar chart. So now we have one bar with the axis of sales for furniture, office supplies, and technology. Now let's take profit and also put it on rows. So now we have two bar charts, one for sales and one for profit. We can change which one is a bar and which one is maybe a bubble chart by clicking on its appropriate marks card. So if we want to change them both, we can click on all and change them both to maybe circles, and you can see how they go up and down. But if we want to just change one of them, let's put those back to automatic. We'll go to profit and change that one to the circles. So now we can see those profit numbers. And if we want them to be overlaid on the same area, we would right click on profit, the second measure on the rows, and click dual axis. So now let's put them onto the same axis. You can see that their axes are not lined up. Let's go to sales and change it back to a bar. So now we have two charts occupying the same space. One of them is a bar chart and one of them is a bubble chart. And we can see our sales versus our profit. At least they're not the same amount of dollars, obviously, but we can see a higher sales and a higher profit. We also have medium sales and a medium profit. We have a medium sales but a really low profit, and it's interesting to see that contrast. So let's rename this sheet as Sales Profit by Category. And finally, we're going to make our details sheet. So we're going to go down to subcategory level and bring it onto rows. And remember, subcategory can expand out to the actual products. Let's bring that back in. And we're going to bring sales onto columns, which makes us a sales bar chart, and profit onto columns, which makes us a profit bar chart. Now let's color them by their appropriate individual color. So we'll go to the sales marks card and drag sales onto color. Now sales is colored by sales. We'll do the same thing here we did before. We'll go red, blue, diverging, and make the center 0. We actually don't have to do that for sales because sales will never be negative, but it's pretty important for profit. So we'll go to the profit marks card and take profit onto color and do the same thing there. We have red, blue, diverging, advanced, center is 0. Great. So now if it's negative, it will be there. So let's sort this by profit. And so both of them have sorted with profit in mind. And we can easily see our subcategories that have a negative profit. Let's rename this, and we'll call it our details sheet. So now we have these 4 visualizations that all have to do with similar information. I think I want these bigger on the states, so we'll just keep making that bigger. Perfect. Now we're going to make our first dashboard. So for our dashboard, we have information over here that shows you what sheets you can bring on. These get a little bit more complex, so they'll be covered in more in-depth type of videos. And then we have our size. So we could make a range of sizes based on maybe what you're viewing this on. But we're just going to change it to a fixed size. And we're going to make it 1400 by 1000. And this is our dashboard size. So let's bring on sales profit by region, sales and profit by state. Now a map needs a little bit more horizontal space than region does. Let's bring sales and profit by category underneath the region and the detail underneath the state. Give our map more space again. Perfect. Now Tableau has this neat feature called Use as Filter. So you can click use this filter here, and now if I click on any of these, it will filter the other dashboards based on these features. So if I just want to look at the south, and I click on south, it zooms into all my south states. Now my categories have updated to be just the south ones, and my details have updated as well. So we could see that central has pretty big sales, bigger than the south, but the profit is lower than the south. So we can click on central and focus on central. Let's use this filter on all three of these dashboards that lead us up to the detail. So building a quick dashboard like this, let's make this taller, would allow you to do some sort of analysis, such as, let's take a look at Central, because they have relatively high profits but low sales. So we click on Central, and then we see, oh man, Texas is having a really hard time. So let's click on Texas, and now we're seeing in Texas that we have negative profit in these categories. So we can control click on furniture and office supplies, and we can see all of our products that are really just killing us in Texas, all of our subcategories. And if we want to go deeper into products, we'll just click that plus sign, and now we see all the products, and we'll sort again, and we can see all the products by subcategory that are really just killing us and are maybe not worthwhile to make anymore. So we're gonna have to reconsider making the 3.6 cubic foot counter height office refrigerator. At least for Texas, it's not very helpful there. And then when you back out of that subcategory section, you can also click somewhere neutral in the dashboard or click on each thing that you had selected to unselect it and go back to the main part of your visualization and start it all over again. Now let's move on and take a look on how to create parameters and sets. So new sheet, and let's make a quick visualization that will apply our parameters and our sets to. So let's take a look at all of our customers by their sales, and let's sort customer name descending by sales. Great. So now we're going to make a parameter that will allow the user of the dashboard to choose how many customers they want to see, how many of our top customers that they want to see. So let's click this down arrow and click create parameter, and we will name it top N customers. Great. We're going to make it an integer, and we're going to give them the option to choose the number of customers within a range. Our low is going to be 5, so we'll let them see 5 or up to 20, and we're going to let them skip with step size of 5. Let's start their current value right in the middle with 10. Okay, so now if you want to see how this parameter looks, you can come down to parameters. Before we only had dimensions and measures on the left side of our Tableau workspace, but now we have parameters that has appeared once we create a parameter. We can right click on that parameter and click show parameter control, and we can see our top N customers. Right now our parameter control isn't built into any of our visualizations, but you can see how it works. We allowed them to go down to 5 and up to 20 with steps of 5. Great. Now we're going to create a set. A set is a custom field that defines a subset of data based on some conditions. So the set we're going to build is going to be based on customer name. So when you right click on customer name, you can come down and click create, hover on create, and create a set. So far when we created a parameter and a calculated field, you clicked here with this down arrow, and you saw create calculated field and create parameter, but it's not there. A set has to be based on an existing field, so you come and you click on the field you want it to be based on, and then hover on create and you see set. So here's how we can create a set. Let's name it top N customers by sales. So we're going to allow them to select the top N customers and have that select our top customers by sales. So we want this set to include anything that is in the top, however many they define by the parameter, by sales. So you can come over here to top and change it to by field. We want it to be top, but not just top static 10. We're going to click here and our parameter shows up. So it's going to be top N customers. And then you can choose another field here for it to be defined by, and it's sales, and we want it to be by sum of sales. If we wanted it to be by the average profit, we can come here and click profit and change this to average, and now we would see our top end customers by average profit. But we want sales and sum. Okay, so we've created our set, and we can drag it onto rows to see how it works. And we can see these are our top 10 customers by their sales. And we have this in/out that's generated by our set. So if we take our set, first let's see how this line moves when we change our number here. So right now it's 10. When we move it up, we see our line moves down to include the top 15. And now we can quickly see our top 20. We'll go back to 10, and let's grab the set and drag it onto our filters. So now we have filtered the data down to our top 10. If this were applied to a dashboard, this would allow the end user to see the top 10 quickly and then maybe expand it out to the top 20 if they're interested in that information. Now let's move on to creating a donut chart. So a donut chart is basically a pie chart with a white center. So let's start by building a pie chart, which in Tableau is pretty easy, especially if you use Show Me. So let's create a pie chart for each category by sales. So we're going to click category, and then we're going to control click sales. So we have them both selected. We'll come over to Show Me and click pie. And there we have our pie chart. We'll close Show Me. Let's come up here and click entire view so we see our pie very clearly here. If we wanted to have one pie for each region, we can take region and drag that onto columns. So we have one column for each region and then one pie for each of them. You can see that the pie varies in size based on sales, as well as the angle is for sales. So East has more sales in general than South, and this helps you to see that technology has smaller sales in the South than it does in the East. So I recommend keeping, if you're going to make pie charts, allowing the size of the pie chart to be affected as well as the angle by whatever measure you're using. But for our purposes for donut charts, we're going to want them to all be the same size. So we took sales off of size, and now we have all of our pie charts the same size. Now we're going to make what's called a dual axis chart, and to make a dual axis chart we have to have two axes. So let's grab number of records, and we'll grab it and drag it to rows, and we will change it from sum to minimum. And that's because every record will have a minimum number of rows of 1, and then they all end up on the same axis. Great. And now we're going to make a second number of records by minimum. And we can do that by doing those steps again, by dragging number of records up here and changing it to minimum again. Or a quick trick that I can show you is if you want to duplicate anything you have on the chart here, you can just hit Control and then click and drag it, and it will duplicate it. So if you wanted your number of records to also be down here onto your details or on your labels, you can Control click it and then leave it there. Great, so now we have our two axes, and we have our two marks cards that each affect their own set of visualizations. So let's go to this top one affects these. So let's show that by changing the size. And it's made these bigger. And this bottom one affects these. And we'll do that by changing it to circle. So now each of these are a circle. Let's take category off of color, and we can take sum of sales off of detail. And let's change the color to white. And now we're going to put this white circle on top of our pie chart by clicking here on our second measure and clicking dual axis. And now it's got them lined up one on top of the other. And we have our donut chart. So if we want our donut slices to be a little thinner, we can change the size of our inner circle and make it bigger. Perfect. And so now we have one pie chart for each region, one donut chart for each region. And if we wanted to take this header and put it inside of our pie chart, what we can do is take region and put it on the label for the circle. And it's putting it down here. You can come and edit that by clicking on label and changing its alignment. So let's put it in the middle. Perfect. So now we can see our header here, so we don't need it down here anymore. You can right click and click Show Header, and it hides that header. We also don't want to see our labels for our axes. So we right click and click Show Header there, and now we just see our pies. So to get how the number of sales here for each of them, let's go to, remember, our pie marks card, and let's take our sales and add it to label. So now each of our slices of pie can tell you how much sales they have. If you take the sales here that's on label, right click and click Format, we can change that to currency. And let's get rid of our decimal places. Perfect. Now close formatting, and let's say we want the total amount of sales to be in the middle here with central. So we go back to affecting our circle, grab sales, drag it to label. So now we have 4 donut charts formatted to allow us to quickly see the sales numbers for each segment and also for the donut as a whole. You can also change the colors that Tableau selects for each slice by coming to the marks card that has color for the pie, so category color, and clicking edit colors. And you could change it to any of these automatic ones, where if you double click on one, it gives you all of the options for colors that you could possibly want. There's also several different palettes you could choose from. So let's say we like this one, and you can just click Assign Palette, and it will grab those off of there. Those look very similar to what we have already, so I'm going to pick a different one. And click Assign Palette, click Apply, and this allows you to make some color changes and fit your business a little bit more specifically. Perfect. And let's say we make our pies bigger. Increase that size, and we'll also increase the center size. Oh, not that much. Perfect. Now we'll use a similar technique to create the two-dimensional pie chart. A two-dimensional pie chart can be used so that you can show 2 pie charts at the same time, or a pie chart that's kind of split up by different categories. This has been available in some other tools, and Tableau can do it too. So let's just demonstrate that. We're going to start again by creating our generic category by sales. So we'll control click sales, we come over to show me and click pie, and it makes our pie for us. It remembers the colors that you have determined in other pages, so that's a nice feature. Again, let's make it entire view so we can see our pie nice and big. And now we're going to create our dual axis again. So we grab number of records, put it on rows, and see how it adds an axis, but each one of these categories has a different value for the number of records. However, they have the same minimum value for number of records, and it puts them all back onto the same spot. Great. And then we will control click and drag to make our 2 axes. And we'll just come to our top one and make it bigger. That affected both of them because we still have sales on size for both of them. So sales is affecting the size of the pie chart as well as the size of the angles. So let's take sales off of size for both of them and make the second pie chart a little smaller. Perfect. Now let's also affect our second pie chart by having the color defined by region instead of defined by sales. Let's talk about how I'm replacing it with region. So you could change the color by dragging region onto color, and that replaces it. Or let's go back and we can drag region right on top of the thing we're trying to replace, and it will replace it there. Great. So now we have the smaller circle that's going to go on top, split up by region with the angle defined by sales, and the category is on the top one with the angle defined by sales. Let's pick some nicer colors. Maybe we'll use the same palette we used for category. This one seems right, but we'll pick different ones than those 3. So we click on the one we want to change and click on the color we want to change it to. I'm just going to keep following this right down. Apply. Great. And then we put it on top of the other one by clicking dual axes. Now, sometimes it's easier to see these when they have a border. So we can come to color, we click border and add maybe some black lines. So allow you to see the inner pie separate from the outer pie. Maybe our border could have white lines. How does that look? And we can make them both bigger, like we did before. Whoa, not that big. And you can also add labels like we did before. We'll take sales onto our labels here. And you can see that hovering allows you to see all of the information you need. Now, one more thing. So while we like to hide this axis, we'd also like to maybe hide this grid line that's occurring. So you can click right click and format. And let's go to our lines. Change that 0 line to none. Perfect. Get rid of some of the clutter on this visualization. I still feel like this outer pie should be a little bigger. And we want to clean up our tooltip so it doesn't have min number of records in it. This piece should be 100% behind the scenes. So we can come to tooltip. Right as you click on it, it'll pop up with everything that's in your tooltip. And we're just going to erase min number of records. I erased too much. You need to leave your angle brackets. Okay. And now this piece of the pie no longer has that. The inner one, let's do that there too. Min number of records, remove that right out. And there you have it, a two-dimensional pie chart. And here are our donut charts. This demonstration goes to show you that even when Tableau doesn't have visualization you're looking for in their basic show me options, you can still get to it. So donut charts aren't included up here, and neither is a two-dimensional pie chart, but without too much extra work we can make it happen. These visualizations are a little bit more complex than your everyday visualizations, and so I recommend going through this tutorial with the dataset and following along. If you want access to the dataset, just comment below and the Simplilearn team will get back to you. Also, comment below with any questions you have. At this point in the presentation, we're going to put together some dashboards. So first, let's build our worksheets for this dashboard. We're going to build a worksheet called Sales by Year, which adds the name up here, and we're going to take our order date and drag it onto columns. And now we want this to be a continuous axis, so we're going to change it to our continuous year, and now we have an axis. And we're going to look at sales. So now we have our sales by year. If we want labels on each of these dots, we can drag sales onto labels. And if we want to have different color lines for each region, for example, we can drag region onto color. And that splits our lines up into the different regions and gives us a legend over here. Perfect. Now we're going to duplicate this sheet by right-clicking down here and clicking duplicate. Now we have sales by year 2. Let's rename it to profit by year. And then let's drag profit right over top of sum of sales so that it replaces it with profit. Now, it's been replaced with profit and all of these different data points are here. However, it's still showing the title of sum of sales, and that can be very confusing. So always make sure that your labels are consistent with your data. So let's take profit and drag it over top of the labels as well. That's more consistent with our axis. So now we have sales by year and we have profit by year. Let's do a couple of things to clean these up, like right click here, go format, and we'll change our numbers to currency custom. And now it's marked as dollars. One thing you can do in Tableau is, let's undo that. Since sales is going to be dollars pretty much everywhere we use it, we can define our default property for these numbers. So when we right click on the measure here, you can go to default properties and you have the options to change the defaults for any of these things. And we're going to change our number format. Change it to currency custom, no decimal places, hit OK, and that also has updated this sheet. Now that only works on places where you haven't specifically defined it to be formatted differently. So we could still define it to be different here on this sheet than it is on any other sheet. Let's do the same thing for profit. Change our default properties to the same thing. Great, now let's build our dashboard. We're going to call this our overall dashboard. Change our size. This size is a personal preference of mine. I think it fits nicely on the laptops that I use and that is used by most of our customers. Now let's drag sales by year. Now watch what happens when I drag it on here. It brings sales by year, but it also brings the legend for the region that was created. The same thing should happen with profit by year. It's detected that the same legend is being used, so it didn't bring over a second legend. And we have highlighting turned on. Let's see if this works for both charts. We click on Central, and you see it highlights Central in both charts. That's great. So now we have a dashboard showing us profit by year and sales by year. But let's say we want to be able to filter this dashboard to just maybe one category. So let's go back to our sales by year sheet, and let's drag category onto filters. And now it's going to let us select, we're going to select all and hit OK, and then right click on category and click show filter. So now it is over here, and we're going to do a similar thing on profit by year, but we'll do the shortcut where you come over here to category, you right click on it and you just click show filter, and it puts it here and it puts it here. So now we have a filter here for category and a filter here for category. And so when we go to overall, we can come to our drop down here, more options, hover over filters, and you can see category. Now here's an interesting thing that we'll see. Even though we have a category filter on both charts, when I take furniture out, you can see only sales by year changed. And profit by year stayed the same. Now why would that be? That's because we have two different filters for category, one on the sales worksheet and one on the profit by year worksheet. I'll show that by clicking here, going to filters, and grab category. Now we have category that will affect profit by year and not sales by year. That's not what we want. We want one filter to affect them both. So let's back it up a bit. Take these back off. Let's go to profit by year, and we're going to take off category. Let's go to sales by year, and we're going to say we want this same filter to affect both worksheets. So we're going to right click here, hover over apply to worksheets, and click selected worksheets. Now we select sales by year is selected, and we select profit by year. Okay, so when we go to the profit by year sheet, you can see that it now has category on there. Let's go to overall, let's come here, filters, category, and now we have a filter that affects both worksheets. There we go. Let's format this filter a little bit. We'll come to more options, and we're going to select, we want them to be able to select multiple values still, but let's do it in a drop down. So now you still have those options, but it is a little bit more compact. Let's do a couple more filters. So we can do by category, let them filter out regions. Let's do it the shorter way. Right click, show filter, there it is. Apply to worksheets, selected worksheets, both of these. Okay, dashboard, filters, and by region. Multiple values drop down, and let's let them change their time selection. So this one's a little bit different. Since we've already determined that we wanted year and we wanted it to be continuous, filters for continuous fields are a little bit different than filters for these discrete fields. And that's because continuous fields are a range instead of just a list. So we don't list out a continuous field, we make a range for it. So we've already defined that we want it to be continuous year. And if I come over here and click on right-click order date and click show filter, it's doing discrete year by default. So remove filter. If you drag order date onto filters, it lets you pick what you want it to look at. Let's come up here to year, that's already marked as continuous, and click show filter. And now it is year, but it's based on a range, and we have this slider. And you can see how that slider affects our visualization. Let me show you a trick to make this apply to both. Not a trick, but just if you have not applied it to both worksheets, but you already added it to the visualization, see it's here, but it's only affecting one worksheet. You can change the worksheet's settings right on the filter instead of having to go to the worksheet where the filter exists. And it will only give you the options of the worksheets that are on the dashboard. So there we have it. Now it affects both. And now we have our overall dashboard. Now let's say you want to be able to see the total sales on this chart as well as the sales split up by each of the regions. We can do that as well. So let's go back to our sales sheet. As a quick tip, you can go to the sheet by clicking this Go to Sheet button here or here in the event that you want to go to a sheet but you don't want to scroll back and forth to find where it is. So go to Sheet. Now we're going to do a dual axis chart again like we showed earlier, and I'm going to Control, click and drag. So now we have sum of sales twice. This marks card affects the top one. So we can see that by, if I change the opacity, how it changes the color right here. This is the top one. And this marks card is the bottom one. And we're going to remove region off of color. And that makes our combined one line again. Perfect. Now if we want this to be on the same space as this, we right click here, the second measure in the rows section, and click dual axis. So let's put it right on top. I can see this versus this. Now if we wanted to on hover show that this is overall sales, we can click on tooltip. Region is missing because we don't have it with the color by region anymore. So we'll erase that and put, oh, we don't want it to be orange. Let's make it black. Overall sales. Okay, so when you hover here, it says overall sales. So we can see the difference easily. Let's make it a little bit more of a color that'll stand out. Just a little darker than the others, perhaps. So when we go back to our work or our dashboard, we can see sales and we can see our overall sales. Let's do the same thing for profit by year. Go to Sheet and Control, drag, release. We'll go to our marks card for this second sheet and pull off region. Make it darker. Change our tooltip. Not orange. Overall profit. Okay. And right click, dual axis. There we go. Now I forgot to do one thing on the last dashboard. When you make a dual axis dashboard, it doesn't necessarily sync up these axes. And so this axis over here is for the overall line, and this axis over here is for the region line. So if we want it to stay that way, we should edit our axes, and instead of calling it just profit over here, we will change it to overall profit, and over here, profit by region, just so that it's clear which axis goes to which one. Or you can come here and click synchronize axis. So it's very clear that this is much bigger than these. And if you synchronize the axis, let's go back before we named him. Okay, synchronize the axis. Then we don't need both of these headers. So we can come here and click show header and we just have the one. Let's do the same thing on sales by year. Synchronize. Always good to make sure that your axes are either synchronized or well labeled. And let's hide it. Let's see what it looks like now. Great. Okay, one thing to keep in mind. When we do filter to just one region, the lines are going to end up at the same spot. If we filter to 2, then it's only the sum of those 2. So perhaps the header overall sales and overall profit isn't quite accurate because it isn't overall necessarily when we have it filtered. Why does this happen? Why doesn't this line always show the total no matter what you select here? Well, that's because this filter applies to the whole dashboard. So it filters this line to those regions just as much as it filters these lines. So I'm going to remove out that tooltip line because it could be a little misleading. Let's continue on and make a dashboard that digs a little bit more into sales specifically. Great, so we'll make our first sheet. We'll call it Sales by Region. And we're going to make another pie chart. So let's do it using Show Me. We'll click on Region, and then we will Control click on Sales, open up Show Me, click Pie. Let's close it again. Great, so now we have the sales by region pie. We'll make it the entire view, and when you hover you can see that it's showing us sales in dollar amounts. Now it would be more like a pie for it to be percentages. So a lot of pies, each of these slices is shown as a percentage of the whole at 100%. So let's come here to our slice size. We'll right click on it and we're going to use what's called a quick table calculation and change it to % of total. So now when you hover, you can see that the West is 31% of the pie. Great. Let's also label each of these slices. So I'm going to Control, click, and drag region onto label and add region to the labels. I'm going to undo that and show you what would happen if I just dragged region onto labels without copying it, without holding Control. It will move it and get rid of our colors. And we don't want that. So we're going to Control and drag. Another way to do this, let's go back, is by taking region and dragging it onto label just straight from over here. But in this case, for the sum of sales where we've applied the quick table calculation, we want that quick table calculation to also show up in our label. So I'm going to Control and drag, and it brings that quick table calculation along with it. If I were to undo, just drag sales on, it's going to go back to that dollar amount, and I'm going to have to add another quick table calculation. So instead, Control and drag. That's probably one of my very favorite Tableau tricks. Great. Now let's add a filter for region. So I'm going to right click here and click Show Filter, and we will make sure that this gets added to all of our sheets once we've made them all. Okay, next sheet. We're going to call this sheet Sales by State. Let's do a map. Great. So one way to get your map started is to double click on any of these dimensions that have a globe next to them. So since we want to go with state, we can double click on state and it starts mapping out state. So what it does is it adds latitude and longitude to our rows and columns that are generated here. And another way to get going, so let's go back, is to click on the geographic part you want and then Control click on sales like we did for for our pie chart. Come over to Show Me and choose one of our maps. We could do it with the circles, but we're going to do a filled map. Click on that. So now we have our filled map based on state. We can choose one of these different palettes if we'd like. Let's try this one, or blue teal. Or we could do green, so that darker green means more money. Great. So now we have all of our states colored by sales. Let's also Control and drag sales onto label. And you can see we have the $sign and the money formatting that we made earlier. And let's Control and drag state onto label. Now maybe we want the state to be on top, so we can click on label and it pops up with all these different options. And if we want to edit the text, you can click here on the ellipses and edit it there. So let's cut state and paste it at the top there. I think I lost my center alignment, so we'll do that again. Hit apply, see what we think. Great. Okay, so now you can see that it puts the state on top. You can also see in some of these places where they're super close together that you can't see all of the state's labels, and that's because this option here in labels is unchecked. Allow labels to overlap other marks. So Tableau senses when the marks are too close together and it's going to become too hard to read, and will hide anything that overlaps with each other. If we click this option, now you see everything, but it gets a little crowded over here. So let's unselect that, and you'll be able to see what the sales are upon hover. Great. Now we have our sales by state. For filters for this one, let's right click on sales here and click show filter. So basically, wherever you're using your metrics, your dimensions, or your measures, you can right click on them and create your filters. So now we could, the lowest amount for a state is $920 for sales for this time period, and we could filter out ones that have sales lower than that. But I think this isn't what I want. Let's remove that filter. Let's do it for the state. Show filter. Great, so now we could filter out a state. We could just show Arizona or show them all. Excellent. Let's move on to our next visualization. New sheet. Rename it to be called sales by subcategory. Great. So we're going to drag on category onto columns and subcategory. We could either drag on subcategory here, or because of our hierarchy, press plus. Now we have subcategory and category. And let's bring on sales. It's defaulting to this bar chart, which is perfect. That's what I want. And now we could color it by subcategory. And this is a discrete coloring. We could also color it by sales, and this is a continuous coloring, so the darkest corresponds with the height. Now we don't need to do this. There is already an indicator of who has the most sales, and that's based on the bar height. So if we wanted to color it by subcategory, then each one of them gets their own color. We could color it by category to add to the distinction between the different categories, so that's very clear where they start and stop. Let's do by subcategory. Excellent. So now we have 3 different dashboards. Oh, let's add some filters for subcategory. So let's bring on category as our filter. So we'll right click here, click show filter. There's category. And let's do a filter for our date. So we're going to come here to order date. Let's drag it onto filters and let's click years. Now these are all the years options. We'll click all and hit OK. Right click here and click show filter. So now instead of doing a range where we could drag that line, now we have discrete filter, and so we can check and uncheck boxes to choose what years we want to see. Awesome, let's start with our dashboard. Let's call this dashboard our sales dashboard and change our size. If you have any questions about different sizes, what's available here, be sure to ask that in the comments below. And let's start with pulling on our sales by region. So last time we pulled on a chart, we saw that it added the legend for us. But this time you can see it added both the legends and the filter. So last time we created the filters after we built the dashboard, but this time you can see that the filter gets brought in when we brought in the dashboard. Let's do our sales by state, side by side here, and let's do sales by subcategory underneath. So I dragged it. You can see how I pull it towards the bottom of the dashboard, and it kind of fills in the space where it's going to be and then brings it in. So now it's brought in all our filters and all of our legends. It defaults to putting the filters and legends over here. We're going to click select layout container. It's going to select what they're all inside of. And we're going to make it take up this whole side. but it doesn't need that much space. So you can see in Tableau there's a lot of dragging, there's a lot of dropping, and a lot of resizing to get things the way you want them to be. Give our map more room, and we have a mixture over here of legends and filters. Let's move our legends out of there. So we can grab this legend and come and put it on this side. And this legend, come and put it over here, so that we're getting a little bit more near the visualizations they belong to. This legend goes up here with this one. I'm going to actually click here and change it from a tiled, so right here it says tiled object, to a floating object. That lets it sit on top of a visualization. I'm going to put it on top of this visualization right up here. Excellent. And then we have this one that's showing us the size of sales. That's because on this dashboard it says that size is determined by sales, but since it's just one circle, there's no size comparison. So it's not like we have several circles and we have to look and see which one's the biggest so that we can tell the amount of sales. So we don't need this legend and we can just remove it from the dashboard. Let's clean up some of these. We have several different versions of what your filters could look like. So my personal favorite is multiple values drop down. It gives you some of the most flexibility. But if you wanted them to only be able to select a single value, you could turn it into a radio button list so that it's a selected all or it's one at a time. You could also do a drop down or a slider and make that happen. A slider is a little bit different from a range. On a range, you can see that we could edit either side, and it's picking everything in between. But with discrete values, if you say everything in between, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because what's everything between furniture and technology? We don't know that office supplies goes between those. There's no order. So let's do multiple value drop downs. For big ones like state, there is the option of searching. So I know I want Utah, and I search and there's Utah, instead of having to scroll through the list. This could be really helpful for if you had a filter by products, and that will allow somebody to look at just one product at a time if they know their name of the product, but also not have to just open up the product list and scroll and scroll and scroll, since there are a lot of products. So we can filter by region by doing this. Oh, this is a great reminder. You saw that this did not change all the visualizations. We have yet to apply these filters to all the worksheets. So let's do that right now. Apply to worksheets, selected worksheets, and we will click all on dashboard. Hit OK. We'll do this again. Until we have selected them all. Great. So it's really nice you get to choose what worksheets you wanted to apply to, because in the event that you had maybe a total number up here at the top that you just wanted to stay the same all the time, no matter what they selected, you could make that happen by not selecting that worksheet to be changed by these filters. Okay, great. So we can change what region we're looking at by selecting central here. And then we're just looking at central throughout all the visualizations. I love looking at it on a map and seeing just one at a time. It just really makes the region name just stand out to you. But if we wanted to use this as our filter to filter the rest of the dashboards, we can click this Use as Filter button. And now when we click on central here, it stays in context here, but the other two dashboards change. One thing you may notice is that Texas is not the darkest on this chart because of the scale. The scale goes up to 500,000 there. But then when we click on central, the scale updates just for what's selected. So everything else is filtered out, and now the darkest of the dark is only $170,000. And Texas becomes the darkest on the visualization. There are some ways you can change that, but if you're wondering why do my colors look a little differently when I filter, that's why. Great. We could also click Use as Filter here. So if we just wanted to look at Texas, we click this. This updates to just Central. This updates to just Texas down here. And unselect by clicking on maybe another state, or when you click on the state again, it should unselect. And we can do the same thing here, or if we just want to look at one subcategory and say, oh, let me scroll down a bit, storage. Now everything updates to just storage. It's interesting. I wouldn't have known very quickly that there are some states that didn't have any storage sales, but now when we click on storage we can tell. I showed you before that you can control click and look at binders and storage, and it puts those two together. Also, in Tableau, you can drag, and we could select all of these. So we have art, binders, envelopes, fasteners, labels, paper, and storage. And none of those are getting sold here. I don't know what's up with Wyoming. Excellent. So now we have our sales dashboard. And let's get started on our next one. Our next dashboard is going to be the profit version of this dashboard. So some of these visualizations we can use again. So let's go to sales by region. Right click and click duplicate. Rename it to profit by region. Now you have to be careful whenever you go to reuse a visualization because, like I mentioned before, you got to make sure everywhere that sales is used, you have to replace it with profit. I'm also going to drag this sheet to be more at the end here, after the sales dashboard, just to keep them separate so that we have the sheets that lead up to overall, then the sheets that lead up to sales, and then we'll have the sheets that lead up to profit. Great. So we'll grab profit and drag it onto angle size, and that updates the angle size. Drag it onto the size of a circle. Shouldn't make a difference since we only have one circle, and onto the text. Now when I dragged it on, it didn't do the percent of total anymore, so let's change that to the quick table calculation of percent of total for there and for the label. Percent of total. There we go. Now we have our percents of total again by region. Okay, here's another thing. Since we duplicated that filter, it's going to be using that exact same filter. You see, it's using region from sales by region, all the sales dashboards. But we don't want that. So let's remove out all the filters here and these action filters that are generated by our filtering. Those come from this. These are called action filters. And it's generated when we click this uses filter button. Okay, back to profit by region. Great, we're clear of filters. And let's add back in a region filter. And this one no longer has the icon that shows you that it affects multiple sheets, which is what we want for now. So you might want, perhaps there would be a situation where you would have two dashboards and you would want these filters that you put on here to affect both dashboards. And in this case, that's not what I want. Great, so another one we can use the basics for is sales by subcategory. So let's duplicate that. Great. Profit by subcategory already exists. We made this earlier. Tableau will not allow you to make a worksheet that has the same name as another worksheet. You can call it number 1, or since it does put the title up here, you can put an extra space at the end, or it does detect that space. It counts it as a different title even though it's the same title just with a space. That does cause some issues. So like when we're looking here and we're saying, oh, profit by subcategory, I want that. Oh, this is when we made it. But you don't want this one, you want this one, and it gets a little confusing. The nice thing is when you're dragging things onto your dashboard, when you hover, you should get a little picture here of what dashboard, what visualization you're looking at. And it really helps you to make your decisions and not just have to do it by name. If you're a little bit disorganized and you have all of these called sheet 5, sheet 7, you won't know exactly what that is right away. And so that little preview is very helpful. Great, profit by subcategory. We'll do the same thing by removing out all our filters. So I just click on it and hit delete. You can also control click and then hit delete, or you can drag them off into a space that's not the visualization space. Great, and we only have sum of sales right there, so we'll change that to profit. And we have some negative profits there. We'll keep the colors the same for consistency between the two dashboards. And let's bring on category as a filter. Okay, show filter, there we are. And let's do our order date filter right now. Order date, we'll do years, okay, all the years. So it gives you this option here because it assumes that you're making a filter because you want this dashboard to just be filtered to your selection. You can do that. You can make a filter that isn't exposed to the end user. So let's say you were making a big dashboard and it was just focused on furniture, and you don't want them to be able to select a different category because of your analysis. You can make that happen. You can just click furniture and not show this by clicking hide card here. But in this case, we want to be able to make this interactive in a lot of different ways. Great, profit by subcategory exists. Now, instead of our map, we're going to make an area chart. So I'll rename this and call it profit over time by category. So we're going to bring on our order date into columns, and it goes to our discrete value. Let's change it to our continuous value so we get the axis. Let's grab our profit onto rows, and it makes us a line chart. We're going to change that to an area chart. An area chart is nice because when you split it up by category, by dragging category onto color, you can now see what category is responsible for how much profit, like you do with a line chart. However, its area is what defines that, so you can see that area over time and do comparisons. And also, it stacks them on top of each other so that you can tell that for 2013 our profit was around $50,000 really quickly. Otherwise, we have to add that line, this line here, and it makes these lines smaller and lower, more difficult to see. So back to our profit over time by category. So that's some of the benefits of having an area chart. And if we wanted to go a little more detailed than year, you can hit this plus. And now we have over quarter. We have some negative profits. That's interesting. But let's go back to over the year. Great. And for this one, we're going to make one more pie chart. So we could start from scratch, or we could duplicate our profit by region pie chart, which I'm going to do. We're going to do this for the comparison between a pie chart and an area chart. So it's going to be profit by category, but not over time. So right now it's profit by region. Let's drag category right on top of colors there. And now it's split up. It's having some trouble because it's splitting it by category, but because we brought region onto text, it's also splitting it by region. So we have region, 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 region inside of this category, and we don't want that. So we're going to drag category right on top of region here as well, and now it's just the 3 segments. So whatever you have in this marks card, unless it's on tooltips, will affect your level of detail in the visualization here. When it's on tooltips, sometimes it won't change the level of detail, but it could have an effect on, so if we brought, let's do this right now. So right now the level of detail of this chart does not go to the category by region like it did before. You can bring it onto detail here, and it won't affect color and it won't affect labels, but it will change the detail, and you see how it splits it out again. This is what it would look like if it's by region, by category, and you have much more slices to this pie. We'll go back. But if we take region and put it onto tooltip, it's not at a low enough level for that tooltip to make any sense, so it's going to put that star. You see region is star. That's because this section of the pie covers multiple regions. If we filtered the region to just central, now it populates. So there are sometimes benefits to having it in there, even when at all levels it doesn't make any sense, but we won't leave it there. Excellent. So you can see how the color is what determines, is a big part of what determines how many slices you get. The level of detail for the whole chart is a big factor as well on how many slices you get. Great. Profit by region, profit by category, by subcategory, and by profit over time. And we have our category filter. We don't have our subcategory filter yet. We grabbed category, but let's right click on subcategory and click show filter. There we go. Now we have a filter for category and subcategory. Here's our region one. We have region in 2 places and we don't want that. We want it to apply to all of them. We'll do that when we get to the dashboard. And we have category, year of order, date, and subcategory. Great, those are all the filters I wanted. So let's build our dashboard. We'll call this our profit dashboard once I get it set to the size I want. Profit. We'll start with profit by region. And we'll have our profit by category over time next to it. Great. We'll give that some different space. Have this at the bottom. Have this underneath there. Now it's bunched all these up next to it, so let's again drag it over to the side. It's always good to pay attention to the highlighted section, and it gives you kind of an idea. Oh, you see, I accidentally dragged an individual filter instead of this whole section. So when I grabbed this, I didn't grab all of these. So if you want to grab all of these and they happen to be inside the same section, you can come and click select layout container. And now I'm grabbing all of them. There we go. We'll do the same thing as before. You know what? I'm going to make these floating, because then it kind of sits inside of that same area. We'll make that one floating. And this one too. This category legend applies to both this chart and this chart. So that's very nice. And this subcategory legend, I won't make floating, I'll just put here by subcategory. And this profit by category doesn't need quite that much space. Let's give our bar chart some room. Excellent. We don't need the size of the circles. Make these drop downs. Now, because I didn't have to on this chart and this chart change profit to dollars, because we set that as the default, it definitely saved us some time. So I recommend setting default number formatting at the beginning of your visualizations. Really nice. Excellent. Now you can rearrange the order of these. So I like to have the date at the top. It's sometimes hard to get it to the top, so I take it the second to the top and I drag the top one down. And then category above subcategory, just for logical sense. Excellent. And we have our profit dashboard. Let's see. There is this checkbox down here called Show Dashboard Title. So if we wanted to have the title at the top here, you can click that button. Any floating objects don't shift down like everything else did. There we go. So we could have that title, we could not have that title. That's up to you. Excellent. So at this point, we have our overall dashboard that looks at sales and profit. We have our sales dashboard, and we have our profit dashboard. Our profit dashboard isn't 100% complete because I forgot to make sure all of these filters apply to all of these worksheets. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Apply to worksheets, selected worksheets, all on dashboard. One thing that is nice, from this view, it's really nice to click all on dashboard and you only see the ones on the dashboard. But you can click here and say show all worksheets in workbook, and you can see the rest here. So if you wanted all on the dashboard and you wanted this one or something like that, then you have the option to see them all. Great. Perfect. So before you ever publish a dashboard, it's always good to double check that your filters work. When you filter to just one year, this area chart becomes a lot less useful. But if you're looking at 2 or more, you start to see the shape of it. Great. Now we're going to take a look at linking from our overall dashboard to our sales dashboard. Great. So we'll go to our overall dashboard and we'll be creating what's called an action. So you can make an action on a worksheet. You can see right here, actions, or on a dashboard, actions. So since we're linking between two dashboards, this is going to be a dashboard action. Sorry, just trying to unhighlight there. But if you're ever looking for an action you made and you can't find it, look in the other one. Great, this is our actions dialog box. Here we can see the highlight that has been generated. When it says generated next to it, that means that you didn't come in and define an action. It was made by clicking this highlight button here. That'll generate an action. Or when we look on our sales dashboard, we clicked on this uses filter button. So we should have several actions here that were all generated. We have a couple different kinds of actions when you go to make an action. There's a filter action that we see when we click use as filter, a highlight action that we can see from here in region, and a go to URL action that we haven't used. If you have any questions about go to URL, please post them in the comments below. It basically allows you to be able to select a URL here, and so if you had a dashboard that had to do with maybe stocks, you could put in a URL here and then put your stock ticker symbol there so that you could have a URL that would then take you to a finance website that shows you your stock information. It can get pretty cool. Okay, but we want to link from this dashboard to one of our other dashboards, and you actually do that using a filter action. So we're going to name that action Go to Sales Dashboard. And we want it to happen when we click on our sales sheet. So you see right here it shows us the two sheets that are on this dashboard. When we click on the profits dashboard, we don't want this action to occur. This is our go to sales dashboard. Now you can have an action occur on hover or select. You've seen select happen. That's what our filter uses filter actions use. And on menu. So we're going to do it on menu. And the targeted sheets, it defaults to this dashboard saying when I click on this I want the rest of this dashboard to update, but instead it's going to take us to our sales dashboard. So when we click on this I want these sheets to update. Now we're going to define what filters it's going to apply. By default it's going to apply all of the filters based on what we click. So if we click here it will filter to just 2013. Let's say we click here. It'll filter to just 2013 and it will filter to the region we selected. So let's see what happens when we do that. Okay, it's just going to default. Okay, now when I click on this, it's going to filter to 2013 and west. Go to sales dashboard. This is where it pops up when you have it on menu. It's taken us to our sales dashboard. It is filtered to 2013 and west. Just so you know, actions will not affect these filters here. You see that it thinks all of them are selected because it creates a separate filter. There is such thing as show only relevant values for these filters. So if we click this, it will filter this to only the ones that are relevant. So we can see that it's only 2013 that this dashboard is filtered down to. But if we click all values in the database, this filter doesn't have only one particularly selected. It does have them all selected right now. So we can get here for that information, and to get back, we just need to navigate back to overall. Great, so it works there, but when we click on this up here, go to sales dashboard, we get a blank dashboard. Now, that happens because it's trying to pass region information to that dashboard, but this doesn't have any region detail on this line. It doesn't know what that is, so it's giving it a bad region value. So let's fix this. Go to our actions, we're going to edit our go to sales dashboard, and we're going to select what fields it'll filter on. We will filter on our order date, year, and let me go back to that. We clicked order date year and it goes to the target data source. Sometimes your target data source will be a different data source than the one that you are using for your source data source. Now that gets a little bit complicated. Right now we're just using one data source, so that's not something you need to worry about in a simple visualization like this. Okay, and we're going to add one more. We're going to add region. And it automatically selects region over here, but you could select it yourself. Let's see what happens here. Okay, if one dashboard has region in it and the other dashboard doesn't have region in it or doesn't allow you to filter by region, then sometimes you'll get an error here that will say it's missing out of your target dashboards. So we don't have any errors, so let's see what happens. So we go to click here, go to sales dashboard. What if we take out region, remove region, and we're just doing it based on year? Okay. Click here, go to sales dashboard, and there everything is. So now it will filter to the year that you selected. So this is all 2013, but it will not filter to the region you selected. So even when we come here and we select West, it takes you to the dashboard, but it doesn't filter it to West. You have to do that yourself. So now we have links from sales to sales. Let's make one for profit to profit. Go to sales dashboard, add action, filter. We're going to call this go to profit dashboard. And we're only going to come from the profit table to make this happen. Let's go to profit and let's select our fields. We're going to do the same thing where it's only going to filter it to the year. Now you can see, oh, I started to type in. I didn't show you this before, but you can search text. So I started typing in year and it shows you that under order date you have all these different options. In this dashboard right now, if you remember, we're using the continuous one that is marked by the little calendar. So it knows it's a calendar date instead of just treating it like a discrete field. Okay. Excellent. Go to profit dashboard. And there we go. This visualization, like we said, when it's filtered to just 1 year, isn't quite as useful. But one thing you can do is for West here, we can select both years. I'm going to do it by control clicking. Click, click, go to profit dashboard. And now we've got 2015 and 2016. So that's how you do linking between the two dashboards. If you wanted to be able to include region as well, you could put a note in the tooltip for this, that this doesn't work for region, linking from this area doesn't work. Or perhaps you could not have this total line on the same visualization. You could have a separate visualization that shows the total or an area chart instead, and that will let you not have this problem of go to sales dashboard not linking appropriately. So now we're going to create our final dashboard, our segment dashboard, and it's going to use a parameter in it. So we'll get to take a look at parameters on dashboards. So let's rename this. We're going to call it profit and sales by segment. You don't have to name all of your dashboards a description of what they are, but it makes it really nice and easy. And it automatically puts it up here. But if you wanted to change this, you can just come in here and name this whatever you like. And then it will just show up here. So we could call this segment analysis. Click apply or OK, and there it goes. That means this and this does not have to be the same. If we go forward again, segment analysis and profit and sales by segment. That allows you to have some more useful names down here that make it easy when you're looking at them side by side, but have a name to match your dashboard up here. Great, so we're going to make a profit and sales. It's going to be a bars and circles chart, and we're going to bring in our segment that we haven't looked at yet. Consumer, corporate, and home office, and then we're going to look at it segment, and we're going to make a matrix with category, and we get to fill in this space with our visualizations. So we're going to do sales, and it's going to make these bar charts so we can see for technology by consumer, by corporate, by home office, and it is a matrix of bar charts. But we also want to be able to see profit, and right now it's making 2 sets of visualizations, but we want just one, so let's dual axis. And it's automatically changed it to circles. Also, it is not synchronizing the axis now because profit is blue and these profit is not anywhere near the same amount as sales, which makes sense. You shouldn't have profit that's higher than sales. So let's synchronize our axis. And let's change our sales. Our marks card over here is associated with sales. It's nice and easy when the two marks cards are based on a different measure to let you know which one you're affecting. And we'll change that to a bar. And now we have a circle on a bar chart. Now, if we had profit in front of sales, you can see how it's behind. And you can fix that by taking it to the back of sales. Another way you can fix it, say you wanted the profit axis here over here for some reason, you can right click on the axis and put mark type or move marks to front. Another way to change it. We don't need both of these, so let's not show that header. And we don't need this to be labeled profit because it's for both of them. So the way you get rid of that is actually you click edit axis and then you just erase the title. Oh, and you don't hit reset. You just erase the title and then you close it. So now no title here, but we still have the axis. And we have 3 sets of bar charts across. Excellent. The next chart we're going to build. Oh, so right now it automatically added the colors based on measure names. Measure names is a dimension that is created by Tableau, and it's just what it sounds like. We're coloring it based on the different measure names. One of them's named profit, one of them's named sales. And we know that you can come here, click color, and hit edit colors, and it will open this dialog box. But you can also come here and double click on a color, pops open that dialog box. Let's pick a palette. Let's see. There's a lot of different ones of these. Tableau 20. Let's pick colors from this palette. Profit can be... So you click here, make sure it's highlighted, click the color you want. Click here, make sure it's highlighted, click the color you want. Hit apply. And then you can come to color and make it a little more opaque. Whatever. When you make it more opaque, you start to be able to see through your circles. There are benefits, but also drawbacks to doing that. Anyway, so stick with the Tableau orange and blue. Great, we have our first chart. Our next chart is going to be called Top Customers by Sales. And this is where we're going to use our parameter where we made our top N customers. So let's bring in our sum of sales, make a bar chart for that. And then we're bringing in our set. And so we have our in and our out. We're going to break up our set by our segment, as it's part of our segment analysis. And we'll bring in our customer names. And let's sort it. Excellent. Now you can see that when we sorted it, it didn't take this big guy and put it all the way at the top. It just sorted it each within its own section. Great, and so here we have our in and out, and that's not a super user-friendly title for our users of this dashboard. They're like in and out of top N customers by sales. Maybe we want this to say something a little bit more user-friendly. So let's make a calculated field, and we're going to call it the top N customers label. And we're going to go and say if, and we're going to use our set, top N customers by sales. And since it's an in or out set, it treats this like if it's in top N customers by sales. Then top, we're going to do a string. So it's going to be top, and then we want to use the number that's in our parameter. So we have to convert it from a number to a string, and we have to concatenate them together. In Tableau, you can use a plus sign. Top, and always make sure you have a space between what you're concatenating together. That's something that I tend to forget. Top space customers. So if they pick 20, it'll say top 20 customers. So if it's in the set, then top blank customers. Else, if it's not in the set, we will just call it other. And in Tableau, you always need to end your if statement with an end. Here it tells us our calculation is valid. While we're here, I want to show you a little trick. There's this arrow button here that can give you all of the different functions that are available within Tableau. And it even sorts it out by different categories. So if we didn't know how to make this into a string, we could go to type conversion. We could click on string and it gives you an example. Also, when you click on a function in here. Did you see how it's on date? And then I clicked on string and I'm like, what does this do? Click on it and it tells me. So this makes it really useful inside of Tableau. Also, in Tableau you can make a comment in here. So if somebody's like, what's going on here? You can press dash dash or slash slash and type in, this is a more user-friendly title. Hit OK. And there we go. We have our more user-friendly title. We drag it here. We see our top 20 customers and other. And if we don't want to show this anymore, but we still want it in place, you can right click on it up here and click show header and it hides it. So that in out is still happening there. And let's drag it to our filters. And there we have it. We have our top blank customers. And it tells you right there how many. And we need to come here to parameter, right click and click show parameter control. And that's how we can control these changes. So let's set it to 10 at first. And we have it, our top customers by sales. But it's interesting to know profit as well. So we have really big sales, but how is their profit doing? So let's drag profit onto color. And you can see this person has a negative amount of profit despite their big sales. So that's important for us to know. And we can change our color like we did previously to go from red to blue. And we can change our center to 0. And now we can see the negatives really quickly. Now, they're not the only one either that have a negative profit, but some of our highest sales. That's great to know. Excellent. Those are our visualizations for the segment dashboard. So let's talk about filters really quick. We have this filter. We won't show the filter itself. We don't want to allow them to show in or out. We just are going to allow them to show how many. But we do want to be able to have them filtered by category. So let's show that filter. And by segment, show that filter. And then we'll have our parameter. Great. Let's make our dashboard automatic. As you probably read right there, the dashboard will resize to fit any screen it is displayed on. That can be really handy, especially if your visualization is really dynamic and can change. However, some visualizations, like this visualization for example, if it gets too squished, you stop being able to read things very well. So automatic has its definite pros and cons. So we're going to bring on our profit and sales by segment, and it already pops up with its legend and total customers by sale, and it pops up with its legends and filters, and it pops up with its parameter. Now I'm going to close that and be like, if you don't see your parameter when you first bring it in, the parameter is affecting this sheet, and you can go to parameters and find it. But parameters are workbook wide, meaning that it's going to exist over here too. It doesn't affect this sheet, however, it's still going to show up there because it could affect, it is available for any sheet, and it's the same. There is no determining what worksheets this affects. This will affect any sheet that it is on. So if I've changed it to 10, and if I come down here and go back to the other visualization that uses it, this is why I should name my sheets. Let's see if I can find it. Nope. Here we are, sheet 13. In sheet 13, we have our top 10. So I've got a 10 and I've got a 10 over there, and if I change it to 20, and I go back to my segment dashboard, it is also changed to 20. So it will affect all sheets always. Very important to know. Great. So here's our visualization. Here are some of the more useful legends. So let's make this floating and put it over by the visualization it matters for. We can do the same thing here. Floating right up here. Floating does not work very well for if you were to make this an automatic dashboard so that the size changes all the time, because floating could end up right on top of your visualization and keep you from being able to see what you need to see. And let's make these affect all the dashboards in the workbook. Again, we don't have to do this for our parameter. It will already affect all the dashboards in the whole workbook. And format these. Another thing you should know is that there are more formatting options for these, including edit title. So it's already named it category automatically, but if you had, like here, oh, this is a great example. Edit title, top end customers, and you could change it to select number of top customers, or something like that. Give it a little more space. And yeah, these floating ones do not shift when you shift things, so it's always good to double check your floating legends. And this is a little bit more user-friendly than the title we made for the developers. And that's using parameters in a dashboard. Today in this video we learned about an overview of business intelligence on Tableau. We talked about how to install Tableau Public and how to connect to a data source. We also talked about creating calculated fields, like this one. We talked about making sets and parameters. We learned how to make a donut chart and a 2D donut chart. We learned about making dashboards and adding filters to those dashboards. And we also learned about connecting between dashboards. Thank you for joining us today. For more information, visit www.Simplilearn.com and feel free to post your questions below. Again, thanks and have a wonderful day.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.